Hey guys, welcome back to the Waterlad podcast, the number one rugby podcast on the planet, as voted by me. And as always, this episode is brought to you by the Swish platform, where you can donate to a charity while receiving a personalised video message from one of your favourite sports stars. Another huge week for Swish last week, getting Scott Barrett on the platform, who does join his brother Bowden, and I know how much everyone loves a Barrett. So there it is, the perfect gift idea for anyone in your family. Everyone loves the Barretts. And just for listening to Waterlad, you can get a $15 discount off your order by using the code Waterlad. And like I mentioned, up to 70% of the proceeds do go to Kiwi Kids Charities, which is such a great cause. It's also super easy to use, and all you'll have to do is click the link in the description and then go and choose your star. Also, the great lad, Tim Bateman, has an offer for you that you do not want to miss. Listen to this.
Cheers, Jimmy. Are you looking for an exciting career for life after rugby? My name's Tim Bateman, and I've been a professional rugby player for the last 17 years. My plan for life after rugby was to get into the wellbeing and recovery industry, so I built O Studio, New Zealand's largest wellbeing and recovery centre. O Studio has given me a career option where I can take advantage of the skills I've built through rugby. Despite the challenges of COVID, we've seen consistent growth in our business, and we've decided to expand O Studio throughout New Zealand and abroad. It's an exciting time for the wellbeing industry, and we're looking for top lads to be a part of it by opening your own O Studio. If you're interested, head to ostudio.co.nz/lad to inquire. Back to the show.
Jay.
What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad. What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad.
Oh, what a lad. Now, after the Craig Newby episode, there have been endless requests to get today's guest on, and for good reason. He's a New Zealand rugby legend, having performed consistently well for Canterbury and the Crusaders, which eventually saw him force his way into the All Blacks. He then moved over to the UK, where he became a god over there, winning back-to-back premierships with Leicester. And on top of all the rugby accolades, he is widely regarded as one of the greatest lads ever. It is the great lad himself, Scott Hamilton. Welcome, mate.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Mate, great to have you on. I mentioned earlier, but Noobs was not shy of throwing you under the bus with a few stories on his latest episode, and I think that's got all the listeners very keen to hear more from the great Scott Hamilton.
I couldn't think. I've got no idea what he could have said, to be honest. I thought we had a great relationship. I'm actually going over to see him in a couple of weeks. He's kicking around in Belfast at the moment, so we're going over there to catch a bit of 2020 cricket, Black Caps Island.
Oh,
so should be a good weekend.
geez, that'll be loose.
Yeah, should be. We're Friday, flying out Thursday, coming back Sunday. So we're taking the other half. So we'll try and be sensible.
No, that will see one of you on the TV probably streaking, mate. I could imagine you being a big streaker.
No, mate, I'll pass those days. I popped up to Nottingham to watch day 3 of the Test match in England-New Zealand. So it was quite good. I went with another Kiwi mate. We're about two rows back from the boundary, about third man. So we got pretty close to lovely Trenty. Got a selfie with him while he was down there. And Kiwi mate brought some Eskimo lollies and some chips and Kiwi dip, and we're feeding up Neil Wagner, the 12th man of the day, and he was flat loving it. And the boys, were loving it. It was quite good, actually. It was quite good. We did try and sneak into the try and get into the changing room. The mate I was with was trying to claim he was the brother of Daryl Mitchell, but didn't quite fly with security.
Oh, that's good times. But one thing you probably don't know is that the first few years of my career, I was actually labelled Scott Hamilton. All the boys used to call me Scott Hamilton for the first 2 or 3 years of my career, after you gave me one of the biggest don't argues in a quarterfinal, Tasman versus Canterbury at Jade Stadium. I'm not sure if you remember the try or the game, but mate, I feel like I'm getting to know myself here after I was called you for so long.
Oh, well, mate, to be honest, my memory of games, I don't know if that's because I've had a couple too many knocks, but I don't remember individual games at all. I've had interviews. I had an interview over here because Leicester played Northampton in the semi-final, and the guy was ringing up and asking for can you remember this game and what happened? And I said, oh, mate, I honestly, I know where we finish in a year and things like that, but individual games, unless it's something that really stands out, I do struggle. But no, unfortunately, I don't remember. But I actually heard you must have passed that mantle on. I can't remember the other blonde-haired winger that ended up coming over here. Didn't he? He's got. Apparently they were calling him Bubbles. That was a long time ago. I can't remember who it was.
Mate, I would have been quick to offload that nickname. I tried to get rid of it straight away.
Yeah, well, no, it's a weird thing that nobody calls me it anymore, mate. Over here, no one. It didn't catch on. So no, it's quite limited. Not so much. Not such a nickname culture really over here.
True. How'd you get that nickname? That question came up heaps.
It was. I've got a big head, mate, large cranium, which you maybe not can tell, but if people try my hats on, it's a nightmare going hat shopping, mate. Absolute nightmare. I've got there are only a select few that can fit my Swede. So when I started high school, I was quite small, sort of I think I was like when I went to boys high in third form, I was probably the fourth or fifth shortest out of our year of like 30. I grew obviously in high school, but I think let's just say I grew into my head at the time. They thought my head looked like a bubble, or somebody did. It started, and it just stuck for a long time. Really, there's still a couple of people that call me it over here. When you run into, you don't see them for a while, but no, it's just mainly Scott over here.
Mate, I would not have predicted that. I thought it had a much bigger story behind it than a big head.
Well, I did. It was something. I sometimes if I had a couple of drinks, the chat up line could be used. Do you like blowing bubbles high on bubbles? So, that was something that don't say it worked very often, though. To be honest.
Oh, it's good stuff. Well, but you did mention a little bit about your time at schooling. Pretty keen to hear a little bit more about what life was like for you growing up. So I know you grew up in Christchurch, but what was the rest of your childhood like?
Yes, I grew up on a farm in North Canterbury, and then went to boarding school at the mighty factory. And I was a bit of a shy lad, to be honest.
Yeah.
And didn't really do a lot at school. I was young for my year as well. I'm born in March, so I was sort of 6 months behind most lads, and because I was quite good growing up, like the under 11s and stuff. I made the A teams right through, but I wasn't doing a hell of a lot, to be honest. Just letting my second year, that's when Aaron Major started school, and I was playing 13, he was playing 12, and he was just dominating. Absolutely dominating. He was just, man. He was just a man back then, and he was just kicking ass. I still remember him peeling off a left-footed drop goal when he was about, I think he was either 14 or 15, from halfway. Stuff like that. He was just head and shoulders above everyone else. And I suppose there are guys that you see, that do dominate, but he wasn't big, if you know what I mean. He was obviously well built, but he wasn't like a man mountain that was running through. He just had the skills, and kick, pass, and run. And he was a guy that you could clearly see was going to do something pretty special, and obviously he did. Ended up. So I had a good childhood playing rugby for Glenmark. Kicking around the farm, and then both my brothers went to boarding school, so I followed them there for 5 years, and got to my last year of. Seventh form last year of school, and I thought I was going to get put into the second 15 because I didn't see myself as a first 15 player, but they didn't even put me there. They put me in the thirds, which was a bit of a knockback for me. Right. Didn't really want to play there because the thirds was sort of the team that nobody really wanted to play for. You either played first or seconds, or you wanted to play social rugby in the fourths or the fifths. And then, but anyway, tried to get out of it, wasn't allowed, but subsequently turned out probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I ended, instead of being an average player in a good team, I was a good player in an average team. And I was playing 10 and kicking goals, and all of a sudden I realised that I had to do something if we were going to do all right, because guys were relying on me. Whether it's, when you had Aaron Major inside you, you didn't have to worry about too much. He did it all anyway. But all of a sudden, I was in an average, like I said, in an average team, and I was able to stand out, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And it, it's something I sort of tell parents today. I think sometimes kids need to take a step back before they go forward. I was certainly one of those, because people love to see their kids in the A teams and the top teams, but some people don't respond to that. And I certainly, I was just happy letting other people do their thing, and I was just looking after my little piece of grass and trying not to stuff up. But then all of a sudden, like I said, it was it changed and gave me a lot of confidence. And if I'd played second 15 rugby, who knows what would have happened. I still would have probably been doing the same sort of things, and I suppose hopefully at some stage I might have ended up doing what I was doing. But I think that was a big turning point, and it was really good for me.
Did you have high rugby aspirations at the time? Were you planning to make rugby a profession?
Hell no. No way in the world was I. Even when I left, I went to Lincoln Uni. Again, just following my brothers. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Just sort of did a marketing degree, because that was the only thing that I sort of half took my fancy. And played for a year for not for Lincoln Uni, but Lincoln Club. They had an under-19 side, so played for them, and that just because a lot of my mates were, a lot of the uni boys were playing there. But I was always planning on going back to Glenmark the year after, which I did, and I got a few lads from Lincoln, and like my brothers did, they didn't have any links anywhere, so I got them out to play for Glenmark, either in Div 1 or Div 2, and did that for a few years. And I can't remember the exact years, but I made the Canterburyans under 19, so the under 19 Bs, which was good fun, with Wayne Burley and Richard Lowe were coaching. Good lads, those two. Richard Lowe, great man to have sit over breakfast before a game. He's got many a story, and great man. And he's up from my he kicked around Glenmark for a bit as well, but I didn't really know him that well. But he was. Yeah, good bloke, good man. And then I think I made it into the Canterbury under-21s after that. But again, like Richie McCaw was in that side, and I still remember, we weren't a great under-21 side, but Richie was flirting with the Canterbury NPC team at that time, and it's amazing. Like when he played for us, we won, and when he didn't, we lost. He was that good. Even as a 7, just not. And I say he's not running around palming people off and scoring tries, but he just made the breakdown. They couldn't do anything because he's there stealing the ball, and we're looking after our ball, and it's sort of his indirect influence on the game was just massive, and so then. And then I got, what was I playing? So I was playing in the country still. So I was playing for North Canterbury and Canterbury Country, and we played again. I think I was playing for North Canterbury, or I can't remember. But we played Marlborough, and I did a right of them. I think I scored a couple of tries, and Marlborough came knocking on the door. I think it was in Canterbury B at that time, just being selected for Canterbury B. And I went to, and they said I was looking for a job. I'd finished uni. I was trying to work out what I was going to do, and Marlborough said they'd give me a job. And then I remember Steve Hansen was coaching Canterbury, and he got me in the office and said, it's not all about the money. And I said, yeah, I know, but I said, they're offering me a job. It's a good opportunity. And he said, well, what if we offer you what they're offering you? And bearing in mind it was like $5,000 or something, like annually, and that was all it was. But I said, he goes, would you stay? And I said, yep. So they signed me up in a contract, and I was only in the Canterbury B team, so no one was being paid. But when I say being paid, like I said, it was $5,000. But certainly at that time, I felt king of the castle, obviously. So I stayed and kicked around playing Bs and really enjoyed it. Again, great bunch of lad. The Canterbury Bs was awesome fun. And that was the time too. I don't know if they're doing it now, but you followed around the NPC team, so you'd play curtain raisers, and still be able to go out with stay the night in Auckland or Wellington or whatever, and come back and get all the benefits of playing NPC. Obviously not financially, but not the pressure. Was the way I saw it. It was a good year or two in the Bs, which was awesome.
Mate, you would have been peaking off some of those travelling trips, overnight stays, Bs, a few beers after the game.
Yeah, mate, it was awesome. It was awesome. I mean, like all the trips. I mean, obviously once when they started tightening the belts, and I think the B, the B timetable, I don't know what they do now, but it sort of went away a little bit. Obviously that's sort of the first thing that's going to go, but I think old Foxy was manager of the Bees when I was there too, so always stayed close to him. He had the CRFU credit card, so you could get a couple of beers on him if you stayed tight to him, which was always a good option.
And then you make your way into the Canterbury squad. Obviously, the All Blacks were still playing NPC back then. So, mate, what was it like going into that squad?
So what happened was I went to America, actually. So I finished uni. I didn't really want a serious job, so I got a job doing what my older brother used to do, just working at an auctioneer's. There's only a smaller company. There's like three full-time people and myself, who was sort of like 3/4 time, but generally my boss would look after me and try and give me my 40 hours and make sure I got paid and things like that. So I did that, and then at the end of that I had a mate who was playing in California the year before. He said, "Do you want to come over?" And I was like, "Yep, sure." So the club paid for your flights, and then we stayed with a couple of fellas in the team, and they we just did a job, like a part-time job, and so effectively you just worked to pay your spending money. So we did that for 4 months over there, which was awesome. Really loved it. A good bunch of lads. We were in the middle of California, and we tagged along to a stag do to Las Vegas, and had an awesome trip there, as you can probably imagine. I do remember a mate I was with, the Kiwi fella I was with, so I went to America. It was just after September 11 too, so it was obviously a bit nasty, but we were about to leave, and the day we were leaving, we thought we'd just have one last look around the place, and then we went past, and there was a casino that was just down from where we were staying that was offering $1 drinks, so we're like, we'll just have one for the road, and then we ended up doing, I don't know, 9 or 10 in very quick succession, having just sort of woken up really, and then one of us did something. I'm pretty sure he did something, because I've got a picture of him being escorted by an armed guard, with the weapon drawn out of the casino, and then I was told that we're not allowed to take any pictures in the casino, but I still got it at home somewhere, actually, a great photo of the police with his gun out, with his hand up, saying no photos to me. But we were. I mean, most people sort of once they heard from New Zealand, they loved us. Americans tend to love the Kiwis. I don't know where I was going with that. Where was the question? I'm sorry, I jumped off. Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry. And then came back to New Zealand, and I wasn't in the best shape, and I missed pre-season. Just started playing for Glenmark, but I still felt I was good enough to be in Canterbury country. But then somebody got injured. I can't remember. One of the wingers got injured, and I got called in. Ended up starting, and we were playing. Geez, I couldn't even tell you who we were playing. We were playing, must have been, if it was Canterbury country, must have been Otago country or Southland country. We're playing in Haranui, up in North Canterbury, and I played awesome, mate. Scored 3 tries, just everything I touched just turned to gold, and it was in front of one of the Canterbury selectors. And then he went back, and then I was, so at that time I was living at home, just on the farm, and I was actually working for I'll mention my old boss Jeremy Rocks. So I was a sheep dotter. So for all the non-agricultural people out there, you scan a sheep to work out how many lambs are in it, and then I would spray them accordingly. So whether they've got no lambs, they've got 1 lamb, or they've got 2, or they're going to have an early one or a late one, and then obviously that means the farmer can draft them out and feed them and look after them separately. So I just stood there spraying sheep all day whilst my man scanned. So I did that for a while, and he had work up north in Kaikoura, and he said, hey, can you come to Kaikoura? And I said, well, they're naming the Canterbury team soon, and he goes, I sort of need to know. So I remember going in to see must have been Ozzie McLean, I think. Was it Ozzie McLean? I can't even remember. I think it might have been Ozzie McLean at that time. And I asked this, and I said, I'm really, really sorry. I don't, I've got work. If I'm selected, obviously I can't go because it'll clash. But if not, then obviously, my boss needs to know. And he just goes, you better tell your boss he's going to have to find someone else. and I was quite shocked. I generally didn't think I was going to make it, but obviously I needed to ask the question. So, but bearing in mind, this was a Canterbury team that was without all its All Blacks at that time, and at that time was 2002. So, that was a Ben Blair, Reuben Thorne, all the majors. Hewitt. The team we were probably missing 12, 14 players in the All Blacks Canterbury side. So, and then played the first few games. All the All Blacks came back, and I understood that that was going to be me going back down to the Bees. But again, I had such an awesome time at the Bees, loved the Bees. So I ended up just going down there. It was I expected it and was comfortable with the decision. And then obviously at the end of the year, the Crusaders were selected, and again I wasn't even playing Canterbury, so I was like, there's no chance. And it was a toss up probably between me and Alesi Tupulai. Don't know if you remember him, but Island winger, who was a big boy. He played some good stuff for NPC. He's a good player, and I expected him to be there. And again, at the time, whoever was selected, we were well down in the pecking order with Vunambaka, Ralph, Blair, McDonald. There was a couple of others as well. So we were, but and Dean, I'd moved into Christchurch at this stage because I'd made Canterbury and I was working at the old Chris England's former Canterbury Locks wood turning place. I'm sure plenty of rugby boys have been through that mighty fine establishment to try and get some work and get some money together. So I got a call from Robbie Dean saying, "Do you want to come and have a meeting?" And I was like, "Yep, sweet." And I again had no idea. I thought it was just going to be, this is what you need to do, mate. We see you got some potential. This is big off season, blah blah blah. And I told my boss that I had a meeting, and he was joking. Oh, he's going to tell you in the Crusaders, and we all had a laugh, and it was a bit of a giggle. And and I sat down in front of Deansy, and he goes, "Do you want to be in the Crusaders? Do you want to be a Crusader?" He said, and I went, "Yep." And he goes, "Congratulations." And I remember sitting there thinking, trying to get around, because I'm in my head, I'm like, shit, he's just told me I'm in the Crusaders. And he stood up, shook my hand, and he said I could give mum and dad a call, but you got to keep it to yourself. And even I called up the old man and I said, "I'm in the Crusaders, Dad." And he goes, "Oh, well done." He said, "So when are they making the final cuts then?" And I said, no, that's it. I'm in the squad of 28. It was phenomenal, and it was actually the year that Ben Blair. A couple of games after that, he smashed his shoulder, so he was out for the season. And then we got Brad Thorne in on the injury dispensation, so it meant that I went up the pecking order. So I ended up playing quite a few games, but again in that first year. But I felt out of my depth. I hadn't played anywhere near that level or trained, or I was just a skinny country boy, mate, who didn't really know what the hell he was doing. So I had some awesome players around me, but it was a bit of a steep learning curve for me.
Did you feel like you were getting better really quickly as you were playing? Because obviously your growth from the third 15 to now being in the Crusaders on the wing surrounded by All Blacks. I think you're the only non-All Black in the side pretty much at the time. So did you feel like you had developed quite quickly to be in that position, or like you said, were you well out of your comfort zone?
A bit of both. I got incrementally better every year, which I suppose most people would do, probably say 14 through 18, but it sort of happened like 18 through 22 to me. So I was at back end of 22 when I made the Crusaders, so I was a little bit behind anyway. But in terms of weights and stuff, I was well behind. Whenever there was strength testing, I don't know, I'm sure you've had plenty of guys on here that people that dodge the bench press, they've got a shoulder injury or something because they don't want to embarrass themselves. I was doing that as much as I could, just trying to. But yeah, once I made the Crusaders, you get into that routine of, it was obviously the pre-season, first pre-season's tough, but you get into the routine. At the end of the day, you learn. You can only push what you can push. You're there because you're a good rugby player, not because you're a weightlifter. And obviously, you've got to do it to get to a standard. And I did all what I needed to do. But as long as I'm getting better. You know, I was still even over here when I came to Leicester. You know, Geordie Murphy, the Irish fella, he was the only fella that could. It was weaker than me in the weight room, but you know, he was a bloody awesome player and played plenty of internationals as well. So it goes to show you don't need to throw the big tin around. But probably the best thing for me was the 2003 NPC. Because I'd had 2003, my first year of Super Rugby, and the 2003 was World Cup year, so all the All Blacks weren't playing. So again, there was a core group of, you know, Mertz missed out on, so he was playing 10. Scott Robertson, I think, was playing 8. So those two were sort of running the show, and there was a few other core lads that were in the Crusaders. So I was playing 15 then as well, and that was probably the year that really helped me. We had the Shield as well for a while until we lost it to Auckland. You know, we had some really good wins at home, and it was a really fun year. We didn't, you know, we lost a lot on the road, but I'm trying to remember. I know we lost our last pool game against Auckland and lost the Shield, and that meant we didn't make the semis either. So it was a bit of a disappointing year, but good fun, and that was a really good stepping stone for me because again, I was sort of being looked at to be a not so much a leader, but sort of a leader, you know, because I had Super Rugby experience where there's a lot of guys that didn't. So again, I think looking back, I've always done better when I was given a little bit of responsibility.
And you obviously were in a very successful Crusaders period. So what made that side so good?
Oh, mate, I couldn't believe, like, sort of the 05, 06, 05 was the best team I've been in ever. You know, you had Rico Gear was ripping it up on the other wing as well, scoring tries for fun. And I do remember, you know, when I first started, because I remember, because again, I was really sort of naive. I had no idea what. I remember one of my first games for Canterbury. I can't remember. It must have been Canterbury. Mertz made a call, and I was at fullback on the wing, and I ran the wrong line. And afterwards, he goes, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sorry. I thought it was such and such." And Mertz, you know, he's a lovely lad, and he would never really chew you out unless... And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then, you know, when I look back, you know, a couple of years later, I look back and I always cringe at that moment because I was like, you know, you're playing professional rugby, mate. You shouldn't be running wrong lines. You shouldn't be getting that. And that's sort of something I've always prided myself on, knowing exactly what I should be doing and where I should be. And, you know, I still cringe at it now, even, you know, doing that. But... And then when I remember thinking, right, I've made the Crusaders now. You know, I'm going to have to... Because I, you know, like to beer and like to, you know... a night out, but pre-season tour, we're in Australia, and sort of I was just sort of sitting back seeing what the boys are doing, and they were just, you know, ripping in, you know, Ralphie and all those lads and Flinney and all that, just charging, and I was just like, oh my god, this is awesome. It's just pretty much the same as Canterbury B, but you get paid a bit more, and you know, you're playing better footy. And you know, it was a real good social time back then as well. I mean, obviously it was you know, it wasn't like we were boozing midweek or anything like that, but once the game was over, generally a Saturday night was a good night. Damn right.
Mate, that's interesting. I always thought it was mainly the Highlanders. Obviously, Noobs talked about a lot of his post-match antics, but I always thought the Crusaders would have been a little bit more serious and a little bit less drinking, but back in that era, there was still plenty of that stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, it was. I mean, and you know, I walked into a successful side as well. They'd done really well. So, I mean, the guys knew, you know, when you're training, you train. What I didn't realise, what really was my opening, because I'd only ever been in the Crusaders environment. And then when I made the Junior All Blacks in 06, 05, might have been 05, I made the Junior All Blacks. And we played Australia A, and we did a tour of like Tonga, Samoa, Fiji. Awesome, great time. Ian Foster was coach of that side actually, so I do have a bit of background with him. But yeah, what I realised is when all the teams came together is that, you know, everyone was sort of similar off the field, but once it sort of got on to training and just preparation, you could see the Crusaders boys were a bit different, just a little bit. I don't know, just it's hard to put you, but I don't know, a little bit more professional. That's the way I saw it anyway.
Yeah.
And I came away from the Junior All Blacks thinking that's why Crusaders do well. That's why we're so consistent, because our boys have, I don't know, we're just a little bit more in tune and a little bit more nous about when it's good to relax and when it's time to switch on and do what you need to do.
That's interesting. And I'm talking to a lot of the guys, I think it's pretty consistent message across the board that they just do that extra little bit off the field that makes them so successful. So it's interesting to hear that. But you also mentioned how surprised you were when you made the Crusaders. Geez, you must have been surprised when you made the All Blacks. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of chat, I suppose, at that stage, because again, I was, we'd come off the back of '05, which, as I said, I had a really good Super Rugby season. I was, I think Leon was out for a couple of injuries, so I cut a couple of games at fullback. I think I generally had started against... Oh, no, Caleb Ralph might have been playing 13, actually, because I think he'd moved in from wing to 13. We must have had an injury or something had happened anyway. And then, so I was having plenty of game time on the wing and scored quite a few tries and loved it. And then that fed into the '05 NPC, which we won. That was the Canterbury side. I remember at the time, there's a photo of us like singing the national anthem, and at the time I was the only player not to represent the All Blacks, but obviously that changed a year later. But you don't really see that now. An NPC side that's just got 14 of the 15 starters have pulled on an All Black top, and then Super Rugby '06 again. We weren't as dominant in '06, but we still did all right, and that culminated in the old Fog Bowl final against the Hurricanes, which was a nightmare for anyone watching. But anyway, we didn't care too much. So Casey Lalala scored, I think, the only try, and we had a good win. And we were back in the change room as you do. And Deansy goes, "Oh, can I have a word?" And I was like, "Oh shit, what have I done?" I was trying to think what I'd done wrong, because I mean, why the hell is he wanting to have a word with me after we've won? And I couldn't. We went outside, and he goes, "Oh, congratulations, you're going to get named in the All Blacks tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh shit, wow." Double buzz, we've just won the Super Rugby title, just been told you're in the All Blacks, we're probably starting the first or second beer, just thinking, and he said, "Right, you've got to be at Jade Stadium at 10 o'clock in the morning or whatever," and I was like, "Okay, that's cool." So I did, we had a good night, obviously celebrating, and I remember the best part was telling the old man, like, afterwards, obviously, again, you weren't allowed to tell anyone, but I told the old man at the aftermatch upstairs. And it was probably one of the best moments of certainly one of the best sporting moments. Just seeing his face, because it's been, as you know, your parents do everything for you. Travel, I had two older brothers; they were forever. There was only two of them. They all had to get three boys to three different venues for God knows how many winter Saturdays, and probably summer as well with tennis or cricket or whatever. And they went everywhere for us. So it was that was probably that was pretty special.
And what was it like going into that All Black camp?
I mean, again, so we had a home series against Ireland to start with. I don't know if it was one or two tests. I think it might have been two tests. It was, again, real sort of eye-opening. I sort of felt like, I suppose a lot of, like, when I started the Crusaders, felt like I didn't deserve to be there, felt a little bit awkward. And then I was on the bench against Ireland and was unused, and which was fine. And then this was the height of rotation when we were just trotting out a new 15 every week almost, and beating whoever the hell we put in front of us. So we were playing Ireland. Somebody got injured, so I got told, "Right, you're going to go to Argentina and you're going to start." So I'd been on the bench and hadn't played. So then the other 14 starters had nothing to. They weren't even in this Irish test, and me jumped on the plane and went over. And again, I think we went over 10 days before, and the other boys came, say, 6 days. So we had did a bit of training because there were only skeleton coach crew and stuff like that. But we had a few beers on that weekend, and I do remember having a couple of beers with Ali Williams that's there, and then. Which was kind of weird having a few beers sort of the week before your test debut, but everyone was sort of doing it, and to be honest, that was sort of what had worked for me so far. So why not carry on? And then we got back, we trained, and I remember it was quite nice actually being in Argentina for it, because you're away from all the the home pressures and your home media and all that sort of stuff. I suppose so it was sort of. And Argentina, whilst they are passionate, they're not really obviously a football nation, so soccer nation. It was quite good. And then it was a bloody close game, as lots of games in Argentina can be. I think it was Leon. I was on the wing and managed to get a try actually, which was I can't remember. Somebody popped the pass and it bounced off my knee and I scored. And Leon McDonald got sin binned and we were down to 14 for. I think we're up by. Must have been up by 5 or 6 because a penalty wasn't good enough for them. And myself and whoever's on the other wing, might have been Dougie Howlett actually. Maybe we were sort of having to do the back three between us. And yeah, we managed to hold on. When I do remember Wayne Smith coming up afterwards and saying, a good job's got out there with Leon being out, etc. And I just remember thinking, I don't know, I just felt really awkward. I'd never been good at taking praise and things like that. And I was just thinking, I'm just sort of doing my job. I'm just trying to do my best sort of type thing. But then, that was awesome. And then I started against South Africa in Wellington. So my family and stuff came up to that, which was good. We had a good win there. And then Sitiveni Sidvatu, who was injured, came back. And yeah, I remember Graham Henry pulling me aside and saying, "Listen, he's coming back. So you're going to drop out of the three Tri Nations squad." So again, my whole life, I mean, geez, you know how good he was. So it was like, it was hardly. I mean, obviously it's disappointing to fall out, but I was just loving the fact I was there. And the best part was actually I was still because I'd been selected for the squad. I was still getting paid. Because of the contracts or whatever happened, I don't know. My agent said, "Oh, don't worry." You said, I've heard you've been dropped out. Unlucky, but said, "Don't worry, you're going to get paid for the whole time you're there." And I was like, didn't even think about it. I'm like, oh, because thinking, once you're gone, you're gone. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, because you've signed up for this whole time." So I had a couple of weeks off. I'm with my missus at the time. We were sitting on a beach in Fiji. And I was getting paid to be in the All Blacks for a couple of weeks while I was in Fiji. So it was they changed the rule after me, so I was the last one. So yeah, but anyway, I took it. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, that's classic. So, did they give you any feedback into why you weren't repicked, or what stopped you from being repicked eventually, or was it the move overseas?
No, I mean, obviously at that time, so that, bearing in mind, you looked at that 07 All Black team, I still think was the best squad of 30 players, or whatever it is you take to a World Cup, you would ever see. The guys we had, and and looking back, clearly the rotation didn't help because we focused on having the best 30 players rather than the best, 15 or 20. And, it obviously affected us at, World Cup time. But, we had Doug Howlett was in the stands, wasn't he? You had Carter and Evans. You had McAllister and Major. Sitiveni, Rokokoko, Howlett, Molioina, McDonald. We had 2 guys in every position. And to be honest, I wasn't good enough, mate. There's no doubt about that. Name me someone that you're putting me in ahead of. There's none of those boys that. Listen, I was still, I was enjoying it. I was in touch with the guys, but the All Blacks and stuff. But it got to a stage where I was 28. Aaron Major, who had then after the World Cup, he'd gone to Leicester, and he gave me a call. And because Heineke Meyer, the former Bulls coach, South African fella. He liked me from my time when we played, Super Rugby. So he asked, and we were, I think Leicester were close to the salary cap at the time, and so I don't really know what happened, but they offered me something, and I was always going to wait another year. I was always going to do another Super Rugby season. And then I woke up one morning to an email from my agent saying they've agreed to what we wanted, and all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, I'm off to Leicester. So I wasn't expecting. I thought we were too far apart. But obviously, I thought Heineke Meyer, he obviously did what he needed to do to get me there. And the first thing I did, we didn't have Google Maps back then. I pulled out the atlas to see where the hell Leicester was. To be honest, I knew about them, because I knew they were a bloody good team and had success. But I had no idea where the hell the UK it was. But then myself and the fiancée at the time packed up and headed over here in November 2008. Sort of back-to-back winters, which wasn't much fun. Hated it. Hated the first sort of 3 months. We were playing sort of ball-style rugby as well, doing a lot of kicking, and I found it really frustrating. But then it changed. Then Heineke had to leave for personal reasons, and the Aussie coach Matt O'Connor took over. We started playing a bit more rugby, and I started really enjoying it. We had an awesome year. My first year we won the premiership and made the final of the Heineken Cup, and unfortunately, because we'd already won the Super Rugby and the NPC that year for Canterbury and the Crusaders, and then we won the premiership, and I would have done all four in a calendar year if we'd beaten Leinster, but some little punk called Johnny Sexton at the time that no one had bloody heard of kicked us out of the game, and it was clearly he went on to have a pretty good career as well.
Mate, crazy. So what made Leicester so good?
Similar sort of it was, like, as I said, really different than Jesus. The forwards would just smash the hell out of each other, like at training at times. Richard Cockle, who's England coach now, he was Leicester through and through, and he was it was really weird because Canterbury was, a bit of a less is more. Certainly once you get into the season, once you've done your pre-season, you come, it's all about being fresh for Saturday. Whereas over here, you had to train twice. Yeah, we would do double days, Tuesday and Thursday ahead of a game, which I would always, probably what Noobs told you about, I used to love just heading back, whenever you do drills, I'd just always head to the back of the queue and try and do as minimum amount of reps as I possibly could, where there are certain guys, because we had quite a big squad, that was always my plan, and then obviously it was quite funny because whenever you do like contact stuff, a lot of the boys would congregate to me because they knew that there would be a fairly light session if you're in my group.
And there's one game that stood out, obviously, the kickoff when it went to the penalty shootout, and I think you were called up at number 4 or something for Leicester to Noob's disgust. Couldn't believe you were kicking with your size 15 Gilberts.
So, touching on the Gilberts, I suppose Noobs brought up the Gilberts. So, rightio. So, when I left New Zealand, so I was going to be going through America, and they had a 40 kg limit. And I was like, okay. And then I was at the pub the weekend before, sort of saying, like, up my local pub in Glenmark, and there was a friend of mine that I'd went to primary school with, and she had gone to America with her fella, and her fella had overstayed in America, and he then got refused entry. And the thing is, when I told you I went to America, we overstayed by a month, and I'm like, oh shit, this is the last thing I need. So I rang up, the agent and the lady that sorts the flights or whatever happened. So I ended up having to go via, changed the flight and put me through Bangkok or whatever. So I went down to a 20 kg limit. So I had to cut all my stuff that I was taking over in half, and a lot of that was my playing boots, so I only took one pair over, and I was sponsored by Nike in New Zealand. I thought, oh shit, I'll come over here, surely someone will give me free boots. But it was just 2008, the start of the old economic downturn, so rugby was the first one on the chopping board, so only the big boys were getting any sort of sponsorship, and I was chipping around, and Sam Vesti was wearing Gilberts. I don't know if you know Sam, but he was playing, he's coaching now at Northampton, I think, Northampton Saints, but he was a good lad. And he goes, oh, sort you out with Gilbert. Anyway, the boots were ropey, but I always thought they were right because they filled me up, because you could only probably get about maybe 5 or 6 games out of them before they stretched too much, before they became useless. So the guy, so I wore Gilberts for pretty much the whole time I was there, because I'm a tight bastard as well. But I mean, you play, because you're training so much, and you're playing a lot. I played 32 games, I think, in my first year, and you're doing probably 6 or 7 sessions on field as well. It's you go through your boots, mate. But yes, I did have my Gilberts on in the penalty shootout. Noobs is still gutted that he was behind me. He was number 7, but I was like, mate, one, he's a forward, and hey, listen, I know he's skillful, but he was never going to be picked ahead of me. We had 4 kickers. We had 5 really. Aaron Major, but Aaron had he had something wrong with his leg, so he didn't really want to kick unless it was necessary. So we had 3 kickers, and then it was Johnny Murphy, an Irish winger, and me. And we were the sort of two, at the end of training, we'd be messing around with the kickers and having a bit of a crack. And we could both kick a ball, but we weren't regular match kickers or anything like that. So anyway, the kicking coach said, who wants to go? And I said, I'm happy to, mate, but just make a decision and we'll just roll with it. And so he said, okay, Johnny goes fourth, and I'm like, okay, sweet as. So anyway, so I'm watching, and then I watched Johnny miss, and I'm like, oh shit, we've just lost. It's the Heineken Cup, and then their fella steps up, and I still remember, and he missed as well, and I remember thinking yes, and then I was like yes, and I was like, oh fuck, I've got a kick now, because I sort of gone from sort of psychologically getting myself ready to kick to then thinking it's all over, and then all of a sudden getting back up there, and because I'd only been there for a while, I know it does sound a bit weird, but all I could think of was like, if I miss this, all my mates back home are going to give me so much shit, which is it's a strange thing to be thinking at the top of your run up when you've got all the boys you've been training with all year and all the fans in the stadium, and all I could give a shit about was the people and all my Kiwi mates giving me shit from missing from the 22 in front. But thankfully mine went over, and then Noobs went over as well. So all the major stepped up after that. So we did all right. It was an awesome night. One of my favourite, one of my favourite games actually. Awesome fun.
And favourite nights, go on. What happened?
Oh, well, we just had a good bus trip. I remember we had a bus trip and we had a few, and I remember thinking, like, we had the premiership final the week after. But I remember thinking, this is awesome. And we had a few beers on a bus, but most of the boys went home. There was just a core of about 5 or 6 of us that went into town. But I was sort of brought up in the Crusaders way. You celebrate your wins, you enjoy it, and you worry about next week on Monday. Don't worry about, so we had it. It was a good night, good bus trip on the way home. I think Noobs was there right next to me. There's no doubt he wouldn't have shied away from a beer after a game like that.
And then post Leicester, you end up going down to Coventry. What was the reason behind that move, and was that to sort of transition into the coaching?
Yeah, well, I'd never really wanted to get into coaching, simply because you have no real say of what, if you're really good, you get offered a job elsewhere. If you're shit, you get sacked and you got to find a job elsewhere. So I had 2 kids. I didn't really want to be dragging them all around the country or wherever. So I was still keen to keep playing. In my last year at Tigers, I had an operation on my knee in pre-season that took me out for about 7 months. So I wasn't fit until the back end of the season. And then when I was rehabbing, I got asked to help out at Coventry, help the coaching, which I did. And then when I was fit to play, I asked if I could go on loan there, and which happened. So I played for a bit, and then they offered me asked me to come back permanently the next year. But it wasn't enough to live on, and it was only part time. So I said I needed a job, so they hooked me up with a job, which is what I'm doing now actually. So I've been there, what's that, 8 years now maybe. So I do account management for a security firm. So, but I got sort of lumped into a role with work, which I didn't even have a bloody clue what I was doing. Found it really tough, and but I was lucky. I had a good boss that sort of looked after me, but it sort of felt like all back, bringing back my rugby days when you first get picked into a team. You don't think you deserve there. You think, everyone's looking at you because you're not pulling your weight, and all those sort of feelings came rushing back. But and you're earning friggin' a half or a third of what you were earning as well. In my last year at Tigers, and it's just awful, man. I really battled, mate. To be honest, I went through depression and all. I've done what probably a lot of ex-players have gone through. I've gone through the depression, gone through the divorce, gone through all that, and come out the other side. But it's been, that year was tough. Like, I was trying to sell a house in New Zealand. The marriage was on the rocks. Our Coventry team wasn't doing as well as what it should have. Work was struggling, and it was just, it got too much for me. I remember, about 2 or 3 months in, it was a Monday, and I just broke down in the office. In an office, luckily it was behind closed doors, but I remember having a good old weep, which I never do, and called my boss, and he was really good about it, and he said, rightio. He goes, write everything down that's troubling you, and I'll give you a call back in an hour, we'll go through it. And I did it all, and I read it all out to him, and he goes, I don't know about you, that doesn't sound as bad as what I think it is. And he goes, yeah. I said, yeah, you're probably right. But he was really good. He was quite took some time. He knew, because I was trying my heart out. I was trying my best, but I just felt useless. And then, but again, like anything, you get into it for 3 months, 4, 5, 6 months, and it becomes the norm. You become used to everything you need to be doing. And then, a couple of years later, I was mentoring another young fellow who was starting, in a similar position to me. So it was, let's say, it was a few steps backwards to take some forward. I'm certainly a lot better for it, because you live in your rugby bubble for quite some time. You're earning good money. You just need to look after yourself. As long as you're relatively fit, injury wise, and you're playing all right, things are going to work for you. But once you hit the big bad world, it was a bit different. It was a bit harder, and it just all got a bit much. But I ended up at Cov, and then Cov are doing quite well now, so they wanted a full-time guy to take over, and they did that, which was the right thing to do, and it's proven. But he wanted to clear out, so he got rid of all the coaching staff and most of the players. So that took me to Hinckley, which was where I went to player coach. So as I said, I was still playing at Cov, and then I was player coach at Hinckley for a while. Enjoyed that. It was level 4 over here. Good crack, great club. Real good club. Really enjoyed it. And then I ended up being director of rugby there for a couple of seasons. And I just stepped down at the back end of last year because, again, I was just not enjoying it as much. It's just hard to fit kids' work, director of rugby. And then, I was single at the time when I started, and it was all right. And then I started seeing a girl now, so just trying to fit all that in is tough. So I decided to pull it away.
And how long was that process from when you finished rugby, that battle that you struggled with? How long was that whole process?
I would suggest I finished, the season. I was injured, I didn't play, but I was playing Cov, so that would have been end of May when the season finishes over here, and then I think I started my job in August. So you're probably looking August, September, October. Probably the start's always all right, but probably September, October was my darkest time. I just wanted to be a postman or something. I was just like, this is crap. But as I said, I've always been that. I've always sort of been quite negative towards myself, and always felt that I was struggling. It didn't really matter what level I was at. I was always been quite self-critical. But I know a lot of people are like that. But like I said, it's at my worst, mate. At my worst, I wish I'd never played rugby.
Sure.
Because I blame rugby for feeling how I was, because I was like, if I was used to a normal life, I wouldn't be feeling like this right now. And I would have given away everything. Which is, looking back, it's just bizarre but it's amazing how your brain works and how your mind works and gets you in states. And when I think back now, if I'd get to give up my rugby, that just it's been my life. Even now, like just seeing people, and I play veterans rugby every now and again, and all the good fun and stuff it's given me. But it's that period there, I would have given it all away. But like I said, come out the other side, so it's bigger and stronger, I suppose. So it's all good.
Mate, that's crazy to hear. And what was those lowest points like? Did you turn to the booze, or what did it look like? How did you really know that you were struggling so bad?
Yeah, the booze was all... it's always been there for me. I would say I haven't handled it the best in my life. I certainly got a lot better of late, but I always found it as a good release. I always found, like I said, I didn't have a lot of confidence. Never really did, but obviously after a few scoops, you're full of confidence, and I certainly get a couple of bowls of loudmouth soup down me, and people can hear me from anywhere. So I did certainly use it as a release. But there were plenty of nights that you look back and shake your head and wonder what the hell you're doing. But again, that sort of relates back to not just work, but relationship troubles and all that stuff. You just want to get away, and I hear lots of people talk about it, and it is, and like now, because I've been through the crap, what I find is the best for me now. Whilst, don't get me wrong, I love a beer still, but it's exercise. Now, because I'm not doing any rugby or anything like that, if I don't go to the gym or go for a run or something, if I spend a week or 10 days doing nothing, and then I have a shit day, it really makes me feel worse. But if I get out and go for a run, it really helps me. Just exercise helps, and that's why I love, I try and play. Like when I finished, I was always like, oh, vets rugby, why would you want to play that? But awesome, and you meet so many lads, some ex-pros or some just ex-players, just good lads that you can have a beer with. And I do Amsterdam tournament every year. Just did that early June this year. That's awesome. You go over there, play some vets footy, you get pissed at the night, you roll out of bed, go again, try and win on finals day, and then have a big night, and then fly out and go home again. And that, I've met so many mates through that, and that actually the vets rugby was something that really helped me, because that was when I was really struggling, with the divorce and all that sort of crap. And I was sort of, again, I was sitting on the couch and didn't want to go to the pub and didn't want to do anything, didn't want to see mates, just wanted to watch TV, just wanted to be by myself. And it wasn't really until I went to this vets, I didn't know a soul, just meeting people. Was there for like 3 nights, had awesome trip, and then still on a WhatsApp group, and you jump around if if someone's in this neighbourhood or you're up there, you catch up, you say hello, and it's rugby's such an awesome way of networking and just catching up. It's awesome. So it was rugby. I can't get enough. I mean, not just rugby. I suppose any team sport's the same, but I think it's massive. It's rugby's been bloody awesome. Can't thank it enough.
Mate, it's so cool and so powerful to hear you speak about that, because I know how common that is. That post-rugby depression and that transition is so hard for so many players. So I'm sure so many people find that very beneficial to hear. But as always, we've gone to our Instagram for some questions, and I mean, a lot of these have come in from noobs and a lot of other followers from around the world, but we'll try and race through a few of these to finish. First question is, obviously a lot were about the nickname Bubbles, we've covered that, but the next one, what is your best jug scull time? You must go pretty quick, do you?
Oh, mate, no, I struggle. I'm good up to about a 7 ounce, maybe a 12 if you're lucky. Anything more than that, then I'm a real battler. I remember I've never timed. I'd never be good, mate. My big concern is if I get given something like that, is to set it aside. It needs to be relatively close to room temperature, because I struggle with the coldness. That's why, actually, if you're going to give me something, give me a Guinness, because then I know I can get through that without getting a bloody headache or something. No, I'm not a jug sculler. I'll finish it. Don't get me wrong. I'll, slow and steady wins the race. I'll get there, but I'm not setting any bloody land speed records.
Oh, that's good stuff. Okay, next one. Is sleeping on artificial grass comfortable? Apparently there's a few photos to prove this.
Artificial? No, I think that was just grass, actually. It was grass. Well, it depends which I'm trying to... That's the incident that I remember. I can't remember them all. But I think sleeping is comfortable wherever you get, because as we all know, sleeping is the best form of recovery. And so wherever you can get it, you get it. That's sort of my motto. I'm certainly in my old age, I am prone to having a little nap in the corner of a pub. If just sort of to give myself a little 15-minute power nap. I'm a big advocate for that. Still do it. And the way I also said, if you're sleeping, you can't cause any trouble.
Oh, I like that's probably good advice for some of the listeners out there. Okay, next one. Tell us a story from the Amsterdam 10s. No phone, no wallet in a bush.
Yeah, so that was my second trip to Amsterdam. So I'm not sure what happened, to be honest. We had a massive night, and I'm dressed up as Goose from Top Gun. So I got the old, because it was fancy dress. The last night's always fancy dress. And I literally wake up walking down the street, if you know what I mean. My first memory is walking down a street, and I'm like, Jesus, what the hell's going on? I've got no wallet, no phone, thinking, okay, so I know where I'm staying, so I managed to get a taxi. He takes me back to the hotel. I have to wake up my roommate to get him to pay the taxi driver. And bearing in mind, I'm leaving that day, and I'm like, I've got no phone, no wallet. I'm like, rightio. So I get someone to find my iPhone, and then that shows like some grassy area just out of town. So clearly I've taken my love of sleeping to this grassy area, I assume, unless someone's pickpocketed me and thrown it out or something. Anyway, so I get a taxi there to try and thinking if I can find my phone, I'll find my wallet. Anyway, I'm searching around, can't bloody find it. Oh, shit. And then I'm like, right, I've got to catch my flight. And so I go back to the room, pack everything up, get to the airport, and then realise I've left my passport in the hotel safe. Got to head back again, get the thing, and then I get back to the airport, and now I'm like going to be late. And the lady tells me, yep, you need to go down this end of the airport. And I rush down there and look around, and I'm like, I can't see where I'm meant to be. And then I ask someone else, and I've been given wrong advice. I'm down the other end of the airport. So anyway, I missed my flight. I'm now in Amsterdam airport with a passport, and that's all I've got. Obviously my kit, but my passport. So I've got no wallet, no phone, and no way of getting home, obviously, because none of my teammates, they're not at the airport. I don't even know, who's there and who's around, and I've got no contacts whatsoever. And I'm thinking, rightio, and I'm bearing in mind, hungover, so not really. And I'm thinking, so I sort of take myself somewhere. I sit down, and I think, right, what are you going to do here, Scott? You got it. And I said, right, well, you need some money. So I went to ask, can I buy a ticket? Yeah, you can buy a ticket. What's it worth? €200. Okay. So then I went to Burger King, and there were these some young English lads there, and I was just sort of trying to find someone, and I said, rightio, fellas, I've got a predicament. Told them the story. I said, I need to borrow €200. I will transfer the money. If you give me your phone, I'll transfer your money. Call the bank, blah, 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 blah. And they looked at me suspiciously, as you would. And then one of them goes, okay, mate, I'll help you out, because I'd like to think someone would help me out if I was in your situation. I said, bloody good bloke. So I gave him an extra €20 to pay for his bloody Burger King. Anyway, got my money, brought my ticket, and got home. So I was quite proud of myself to be able to actually make my way back to get my way back into the UK. Bit like The Amazing Race, to be honest, mate. I felt quite chuffed with myself when I got home. Did
you ever find your wallet or phone?
No, I've been through a few wallets and phones. That's actually probably a really good barometer of where you are where you are personally, is how many wallets and phones you've been through of late. So to be honest, I went through a lot through that period that we just spoke about, but I don't think I've lost a wallet or a phone for about 5 years. So I think that shows I'm in a much better place than what I used to be. It used to be probably an annual occurrence.
Oh, that's good stuff. Okay, next question. This question's from our major sponsor, Swish. If you could get a video shout out from any celebrity, who would it be and why?
Oh, a video shout out. Oh, good question. I would take someone probably funny, mate. I'd like someone like Will Ferrell or someone like that. Yeah. I was thinking, I don't really care about sportsmen too much. It'd be someone funny like that. That'd probably be where I'd go. I do enjoy him.
Mate, Will Ferrell, absolute lad. Okay, next one. Fastest white dude you've ever played with. This guy said you were white lightning.
Fastest white dude. I thought my fastest dude, Siddhavini Sivavatu, was unbelievable. I remember I played an All Black trial again. I know he's not white clearly, but I remember coming and I was at 15 or at wing. I can't remember, but he broke the line and he just came up, squared me up, and then took me on the outside. And I remember just doing the token, I'm going for your ankle tap, but knowing that I was nowhere near, wasn't even near him. I just remember that day thinking, Jesus, I'm way off the pace. Fastest white dude. I always used to have big old battles with old Tim Mickelson, the old sevens player, when he was at Waikato. He was a big white fella like me, so I used to remember. And then my other sort of was Petey Hewitt, my nemesis. He was at New South Wales Waratahs for a while. And he actually came over here. He played for London Irish. I played him over here a couple of times. But I always used to see him as my nemesis just because he was another white winger. But actually, when I got to meet him, he was a bloody good bloke. But yeah, the other one, Brent Ward. I remember Brent Ward. He's a bloody good lad. Played against him and with him. I lived with him actually for a bit of time when he came down to the Crusaders. He was another white outside back. There's not many of us, mate. Not many of us kicking around in New Zealand rugby.
Mate, you just named all the white battlers. How good was that? Oh, good stuff. Okay, next question. What do you remember about the Kasabian concert?
Not much, to be honest. See, that was again, I'd say that's in my tough time. I thought it'd be a really good idea to sneak a vodka in my 1 litre water bottle, and then obviously got overexcited and ended up having a nap in the middle of not in the middle of it, sort of out the back somewhere, but someone I came to in the St John's ambulance. But again, it was a another one of my low times, James, mate. I'm not going to lie. That'd be a top. It could be a top 3, I think, low moment for me. That one. So I prefer not to talk about it.
Is it true? Is it true a fan took a photo of you, blackmailed you to put it on Twitter or something?
Yeah, somebody said, I can't remember what the question was. Somebody said something about, it was on Twitter or something, and said, Scott, where are you? And then he took a picture. I found him and took a picture of me on the ground. And then I was and then the next day I contacted him. I said, listen, mate, I know it's a laugh, but I'd appreciate you taking that down. It's not really going to do. I said, I know it's all my fault, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't aggressive about it or anything because obviously it's my fault. But I said, can you take it down, mate? Because, and to be fair to him, he did. So I've got no idea who it was. But, yeah, it wasn't, as I said, not my finest. I was going to say not my finest hour, but probably not my finest 2 or 3 hours.
But you kept your phone and wallet? Didn't lose those?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know. It was more. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's. It was one of those ones that I mean, even still, like, to be honest, now because Kasabian's a big Leicester band and it's massive, but I cannot like any of their songs simply because of that incident, because it just reminds me, and I feel, you just get that cringe feeling of. Every now and again, you will just be in a car somewhere and it comes on, you're like, oh, and that's all I think of, which is, again, not the best, but such is life. We all make mistakes, mate.
Oh, do we what? That's classic. Okay, next one. This one's post LV Cup final versus Northampton. Apparently, you've got a Land Rover testing the next day. Talk me through this one.
So we won the LV Cup final, and I had a bit of blue with the wife at the time, and I ended up not being allowed in. So I crashed around at my old mate. So Noobs had just been through he went through his probably about 2 years before I did, maybe a bit longer. But anyway, so I crashed at Noobs' place, and because I woke up and we had to be at this Land Rover thing the next day, and it was a team building, because it was the LV Cup final it's like the third best thing you can win, and it happened. The final was sort of towards the back end of the season, so we still had plenty of rugby left. So it wasn't like it's the final and you're on it and you're done. But we had a big night at the local pub and crashed at Noobs' place, and then we had Landry, and obviously we're all in our number ones because that's what we're wearing, and I had nothing else to wear, so I woke up in my number one. Noobs was like, "Come on, we got to go." And I'm like, "Oh yeah," I didn't really want to go home, so I was like, "Okay." So I just turned up to the Jaguar Land Rover testing at 10 o'clock with my number ones on. And everyone else has obviously been changed, showered and whatever. Everyone was looking at me, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, wow, long story. But in short, I don't have any other clothes to wear. I don't know where I didn't borrow some of Noobs, to be honest, but I hadn't, obviously, clearly wasn't thinking the quickest. And everyone else was driving, and I just sat in the back, and they were like, "Do you want to drive?" And I'm like, "Nah, mate, I'm all good. I'm all good back here. You can just..." And it was like one of those slow things up and down and going all over the place. And there was also a clay pigeon shoot and things like that. So we did all that. But so yeah, it was. I tell you what, up until the obligatory argument after a night on the booze. It was a good night. It was an awesome game. I scored a try in the final, so I loved it. But I'm just again. Probably one too many pints proved my undoing.
Oh, good stuff. Okay, two more questions. Tell us about the all-inclusive holiday in Egypt with the missus. Don't know this one.
Gee, that's another one in the top three, actually. So we ended up, I could have sworn, like, we had all-inclusive, and I was just sitting there. I hadn't actually had that much to drink, and it was early doors, but then for whatever reason, I don't know what had happened, but I don't know if there was some sort of, I hate to say this because everyone goes spikage or something, but I hadn't had enough to worry. It wasn't like I'd been there all day, we'd been out doing stuff, and anyway, I lost the guts and ended up falling asleep in the toilet for some reason. Which again, that's very unique to me. Normally I find a nice bit of grass or a sofa or something, so I don't know what the hell would happen there. I'm still a bit dubious about that one. I know. Obviously, I've got a fair bit of incriminating evidence and a bit of bad background, but I don't think that was 100%. I still think there's something fishy on that one. But that didn't obviously go down very well either. It was a to be honest though, great outside of that night, great trip, mate, great trip. Fully recommend it. We went to Sharm el Sheikh and then we took a day trip, saw the pyramids and all that. So that was a good. It was a good trip outside of the outside of that one night. We were doing I don't know, all inclusive as you see, but it just the wheels fell off very, very quickly, unfortunately. The big problem was I was telling a English fella about how a lot of the boys in England don't really give a crap about whatever, they just sort of drink, and it's all about the rugby culture. The same as the rugby culture over here. Like in New Zealand, a lot of the partners all get involved. And that's how it is. But in England, it's like, no, it's boys, boys, boys. It's always boys, 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 which I've always found is a bit awkward because it's just, obviously you have a good thing about New Zealand, you have the odd away trip, you can have it just the boys, but when you're at home, the partners are there, and that was always how it was, and I think that's how it should be. But, and I was just saying how, I was sort of bagging the people, the English and all that, and saying how they, just did whatever they wanted on the piss, and then I was the one sleeping in the toilet at the end of it. So clearly, I didn't follow what I didn't practice what I preached.
Oh, so good! And you said we've got 2 of your top 3 worst moments. What's the other one?
Well, I've got one actually. I was surprised this was so. This is my first one. So we this is more humorous though. So whilst it is embarrassing, at least it ended well. So we'd 2003, we had just lost to the Blues in the Super Rugby final, and we flew back. We'd all headed into Christchurch and got on it hard. And I've got a horrible tendency, if I can't wait for a taxi, if there's nothing there, my mind is, I'll find one, and I just go walking, which is the stupidest thing in the world, because clearly you want to stay in the most built-up area to get a taxi. And I've done it plenty of times, because I just, for whatever reason, I get in my mind that I'm going to solve this issue. Anyway, so I did that, and I'm walking down, I can't, like Manchester Street or something, heading out towards that way. And obviously, I get halfway there, and all of a sudden I'm like, I need to sleep. I'm done. I can't find anything. And clearly what I've done is that there was a girl or someone had walked into a house, and I've obviously seen it and gone, oh, okay. And I've got no recollection of this whatsoever. So I'll go in the door, and she's obviously gone to bed or whatever, and I've just gone to sleep on the couch in the front living room. Very similar to what who did it down in Queenstown? Was it Xavier Rush or Norm Hewitt or someone did something like that? But they were plastered all over the Herald, you see. So mine ended up quite nicely. So again, I've got no idea. Obviously, we'd all had a skinful, and then the sun comes down in the morning, and I'm done up on my Crusader number 1s, and he goes up, wakes up his old man, and goes, Dad, there's a Crusader on the couch. And I'm like, oh, as a kid, he's like, what the hell? And he comes down. Anyway, he calls someone, and our physio comes to get me. And so this must have been early, like 6 or something in the morning. And again, still no recollection. So I wake up in my bed thinking, oh yeah, I've made it home. Sweet as, no troubles here. We obviously start having a few beers again because it's the end of the season. And the physio comes around and he goes, he starts looking at me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, what do you mean? And he goes, don't you remember? I said, remember what? He goes, where'd you wake up? I said, in my room. He goes, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. Anyway, so he tells me the whole story of what happened. And I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, awful. Anyway, so I get this guy's number, and he's, I'm obviously really apologetic, and I get him one of my jerseys, I get it signed, and, I give him a TAB vetting voucher. I give him quite a bit of stuff, because obviously it could have gone pear-shaped. I can't really, I gave him a match jersey, TAB, a few other things, bottle of wine or some beers or something. So I took it round to him. I said, I'm so sorry. And he said, yeah. He said, it's all right. He said, to be honest, mate, in all of the houses in all of Christchurch, mine was probably a pretty good one to come into. And I'm like, because imagine, as I said, I was bloody lucky. To be honest, that's been kept relatively quiet until now, probably. But like I said, I don't know who the gentleman was, but bloody good bloke, clearly. And thank you very much.
Oh, that is good stuff. That guy, he did save you, absolute lad. That is a good play from him. Okay, last question. Best piece of advice you have for a What a Lad listener? You've given heaps throughout this episode already. Looking forward to this.
Oh, best piece of advice. it depends, but for me, and I always think it sort of depends on what kind of the person you are, but you got to look after yourself first. You got to be happy first. For me, and I've sort of taken a while. You've obviously got lots of things going on in your life, but unless you're happy, you're not going to make the people around you happy. And obviously, everything's give and take, and you've got to do certain things, and you've got to look after yourself sometimes and look after other people. But certainly if you're going through some shitty times, you've got to look after yourself. You've got to work out what makes you happy. And having gone, like I said, I always was a bit sceptical about depression. Really, I mean, I knew it was there, but I was like, just the normal Kiwi bloke attitude. You just crack on, you get over it. Until I went through it, and then I suddenly realise now why people do what they do. And like I said, it was a shit time, but I've come out a lot more understanding of myself and of other people, I suppose. So yeah, I don't want to get too bloody serious, but I think with all the shit that's going on in the world at the moment, you got to look after yourself, back yourself. I think most people, I would say, friggin' 90% of the population, think they are not as good as what other people, or as good as what other people probably perceive you to be. Because I know myself, you tend to always have focused on the shit you did wrong and the shit you need to get better at, rather than the stuff that's really good. I always remember, like Wayne Smith when he was in the All Blacks, he's like, focus on your strengths. You don't just practice your weaknesses. You want to make your strengths stronger as well. And I'd never really thought of that, because you're always drilled into your, work on your weaknesses, practice your left foot, do this, do that. Whether it's, it's always one thing I've always remember, always work on your strengths. Think that same as in life, you're most people are good blokes, and you've got to make sure you look after yourself mentally and physically. Certainly, like I said, I'm certainly never been a gym bunny, never liked to be overly fit, but if I don't do exercise, it affects me mentally, and it's massive for me. And and the other thing is, you're a long time retired, mate, so play for as long as you bloody well can.
Mate, love that advice. So much in that. There's everything in that advice, and so much in that podcast as well. Obviously, hell of a rugby journey from the third 15 to becoming an All Black. What a pathway. A little bit more serious stuff there with the transition, and obviously a hell of a lot of diesel yarns, because it sounds like you've had a hell of a time on the piss with some of the lads over your career. But, mate, really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been awesome to catch up with a fellow white battler, and obviously someone who I was called the first few years of my career, so it's been awesome to have a yarn with you.
No worries, mate. No, much appreciated. So I'm heading back to New Zealand Christmas, so hopefully to catch up if anyone's around, charging into Christchurch for a couple of weeks, so I'm looking forward to that. Mate,
and if anyone sees you out in the town, offer him a beard so he doesn't have to sleep on the grass.
I like to think I'm a changed man now, mate. I'm in my 40s now, a little bit more, slightly more mature.
No, I appreciate it.
Good man. Cheers, buddy.